James from the Ed Center here, and today we're going to talk about why leaves change color in the fall. So, why do they change color? The function of a leaf is to bring in energy through photosynthesis. It's essentially a solar panel for the tree. It's the way they're able to collect sugar using a pigment called chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is what gives the leaf their green color. They're using the chlorophyll to absorb sunlight, and then they take that sunlight and turn it into sugars using photosynthesis. So why wouldn't they want to do this throughout the entire winter season, you might ask, right? Well, we're in fall now, which means that the days are getting shorter and shorter. With the cold temperatures, those leaves are very hard to maintain in the winter, especially when they're so thin like this, and they're not protected against the cold. So they'll dry out, they'll shrivel, and they'll fall off. So when the trees, they change the leaves from green to yellow, they're changing the chlorophyll inside. They're taking it apart into pieces and storing it inside themselves. They're reclaiming a little bit of that energy that they expended to make the leaves and the chlorophyll. They're taking it back. So when spring rolls around, they're able to piece it back together. They can reclaim some of that lost energy. So that's one of the reasons why leaves change color in fall. We've talked about why not green, because the chlorophyll's taken apart so they can reclaim some of that energy. But why red, purple, orange, and yellow? Why those colors and not some other colors? The answer still lies in pigments. So mostly you'll see yellow leaves, and that is because there's pigments called carotenoids that are in the leaves. They absorb sunlight just like chlorophyll does, but different wavelengths of light. So when you're seeing yellow leaves, it's not that they've created yellow, it's that with the depletion of the green pigment, the chlorophylls, that's what's left, is the carotenoids, so they're yellow or orange in that hue. But sometimes you'll also see leaves that are purple or red. Now, why is that? And the answer is, it's not really certain. We know what's making them that color. It's anthocyanins, which are compounds that can cause things to be purple or red. But we don't know why they would bother to do that. Why would a leaf turn red just before it falls off? What's the incentive? What's the fitness advantage to that? Because they're actually creating anthocyanins from scratch. It wasn't there before often. They're making it from scratch. Why spend energy to make something if it's gonna fall off anyway? And we're not really certain. There's some hypotheses. One of them is that it acts like sunscreen. So when the chlorophyll is being taken apart into smaller parts, the sun might damage it when it's in those smaller parts, because those smaller molecules that make up chlorophyll might be more vulnerable to ultraviolet radiation or something like that. But that's just an idea. We don't actually know why it does that. So that's something maybe you can do as a researcher in the future. And another thing about leaves and not falling off or changing color is some don't. So you'll notice here we have a conifer tree, which is a type of gymnosperm. And just so you're aware, needles are leaves. So needles are leaves, and often conifers do not fall off over winter. They'll be green all winter long. So how can that be? Why do some leaves fall off in the winter? Because there's not enough light and it's too cold, but other leaves, these needles, don't. Well, think about how you behave when you're cold. When you're cold, do you tend to do this action or do you tend to do this action? Exactly. That's exactly what these needles are doing. These needles fold up on themselves to create less surface area, because when you're huddled up, you can conserve your warmth better. Cold affects you less severely. Not only that, they're less likely to be dehydrated because they're also conserving moisture. So even though it's not worth it for one of those big broadleaves to be on the tree over winter, it is worth it for a tightly bundled up needle leaf because they can withstand the cold. And now even though there's not much sunlight in the winter, there's still some. So they're still getting some of that energy.